Welcome to the Natural Parents Podcast, where we will cover all things faith, health, family, and wealth through a biblical perspective of putting things in life that matter most back into order. We're reminded of Matthew 6:33, where Jesus said, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added to you." Join us each week as we focus on what truly matters most in this life and passing those values on to the next generation. This is the Natural Parents Podcast with Ryan and Abbie Hukin.
Welcome back, guys. We're super excited to share with you today our 7 pillars to living your most vital life.
Yep.
So this is something that actually in the last year, I'd say we've come up with.
Identified.
Put heads together. Yeah, it's not like we created it. I just think we've started to identify them. I'm not saying there's not 8. I definitely don't think there's 6. I think there's at least 7 things that we have to do exceptionally well as humans to be the healthiest version of ourselves. This idea came out of the idea of not chasing symptoms, right? I think as we look at healthcare in our world, we oftentimes are looking at it through the lens of here's a sickness, here's an illness, here's a disease, a disorder, whatever, something showed up. Well, what can we do to treat that disease? Oftentimes, the practice here is called pathophysiology. Like, what's the physiology of the pathology, the thing that's making us sick? And I think that's focusing on the wrong thing. As a chiropractor, we started learning this process. We call it salutogenesis. So the other's pathogenesis. This is salutogenesis. That's all about what actually makes us healthy, right? And so Abby's mad at me because I'm going way too in detail here with you guys. But I promise it matters. If we focus on truly what makes us healthy, we have a chance of living our healthiest versions of ourselves. And so we've identified 7 things that make us healthier as humans.
And good news is they're much easier words than the words he just spoke.
All right, there's a quiz on the next podcast. Okay, so quick rundown for all the note takers out there. The 7 things are, Abby, go ahead.
Adaptability, nutrition, detoxification, hydration, rest, mindfulness, and movement.
Absolutely. If you do those 7 things exceptionally well, I would have a hard time believing that you're not healthy.
Yeah.
Question for you, though. Which one do you think you struggle with the most?
Oof. I don't know. I don't move like I should.
Movement?
Adaptability?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I think there's a little bit of all of them.
Yeah. I think so.
And I think that
Some
sometimes
days-
you can identify where you should start.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need to get more rest. Maybe you need to journal and be more mindful.
Sure.
Maybe you need to work on your nutrition.
Yeah. And I think there's seasons of life. I think there's
Yes.
times where I feel like, I'm crushing it in 5 of 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're never going to get I shouldn't say
Well,
never,
like rest, right? Like,
Yeah.
sorry, parents. This is the Natural Parents Podcast. Rest, you'll get that when the kids move out. Maybe. I don't know. Different stressors to worry about then. But like rest in our house, it comes and goes at times. But sometimes with young kids, it's just, there's not a lot of it to be had. So we can understand. But again, looking through this lens of, instead of, hey, I've got an autoimmune condition. I've got migraines. I've got a diagnosis or disorder or disease that's been given to me. Instead of focusing on that, what if we just focused on the things that make us super healthy?
Yeah.
So the number one thing that I think, this is the foundation for all of it, is what I call adaptability. So we are the most adaptive creatures God ever created. We adapt to stress better than anyone else. That's why we're at the top of the food chain. We can do things much more full scale, full circle than anyone else, than anything else. And so whenever we look at adaptability, there's things, our nervous system is what helps us adapt to stress. There's 3 main types of stress we experience in our life: physical stress, emotional stress, and chemical stress. And all 3 of those things can have a negative impact on our body's ability to express itself as health. And so there's things that we can do to help us adapt better. So the, again, scientific term here today is called hormesis, environmental hormesis. If we didn't live 70 degrees in fluorescent lifestyles, right, I think our nervous systems would be better trained to adapt. And so things like circadian rhythm, that affects our body's adaptability. So we have these blue screens that we look at after the sun goes down. Guess what? Now your nervous system's all kind of out of whack, right? And so
Wacky.
not knowing what to do. Never exposing ourselves to hot or cold. The invention of the HVAC system was actually a detriment to human health. Now, don't get me wrong, I get home.
We're building a house and it is going in.
We're going to have one. It's going to stay a constant temperature all the time when I'm in that house. But we have to get outside, grounding, putting your feet on the ground. There's amazing benefits of that.
Yeah.
It's one of your favorite things to do.
It is. Not in the cold. Hurts.
Do I have permission to talk about the science of grounding and that it's not just woohoo?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. See,
Some
Abbie,
things may seem woohoo, but I give information.
there is actually support of this, that we have all these free radicals and negative ions that come through stressful situations that we encounter as human beings. Well, the earth has a very positive charge exposed to it. And so if we put our feet on the ground, we'll transfer those ions together. And you've experienced, you had a headache, you go out, put your feet on the ground, guess what?
Yeah.
Headache's gone.
Yeah,
right?
it really is. And that's where like barefoot shoes come in.
Yeah.
You know, people, not only for the shape of the foot and the balance and like your pelvis and all of the things, but it's also like I'm blanking on the
Free runners.
free runners. Are they the ones with the copper? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they have copper infused in the bottom, which only helps enhance
Yeah.
that. But you still get it with other barefoot shoes, right? That are just like the rubber. There's less barrier there. If you think of like a tennis shoe's layers and they're, so thick and they've got all these layers, well, that's just really disconnecting you or your kid from the earth.
Absolutely.
Not saying that you can't have those, but if you're wearing them only and all the time, you may not get that benefit.
Yeah, and they also make, I don't know if you knew about this, but sheets, like bed sheets.
Yes, they do.
You can ground yourself while you sleep.
I've seen somebody testing it,
Yeah.
and it was like, they would grab a charger and like get into that grounded bed with it and like what it would do. And they had this thing and it showed, and it was just really, really cool.
Okay, so for you, those of you that aren't going to go buy grounding sheets or grounding shoes, one other thing, we talked about this one this morning, you can actually just turn your Wi-Fi switch off at night. Okay, so you're like, how can I help my nervous system adapt to the life around me better? There's little things like that you can certainly be doing. So adaptability, the number one thing that we have to do well, and we've got to give our bodies ways to adapt. So cold therapy, what's the cryotherapy, cold plunging, saunas. There's certain types of saunas, things like that, where we're exposing our bodies to extreme cold and extreme heat. It teaches our nervous system how to adapt to all kinds of stress, emotional stress, physical, emotional, spiritual, all these different things better. So adaptability, number one thing. We could probably do a whole podcast about that.
Yeah.
But we're not today. We're going to move on to...
You're forgetting one huge one.
Uh-oh.
For adaptability.
Go.
What do you do?
Oh, yeah, I'm a chiropractor. Oh, by the way.
All that said.
Yeah, all that said. It's life for me. So chiropractic's premise is to truly allow your nervous system to adapt to its environment better. People think it's about neck pain and back pain and headaches, and do we help people with that all the time? You bet. But really what it's about, truly finding a neurologically focused chiropractor, is all about finding someone who's helping your body and your brain communicate more effectively, so that when you live at this threshold of stress in your life, there's not, one shoveling accident or one exposure to gluten or one stressful situation at work that just sits you over the edge. We actually start to increase that chasm of what my adaptive threshold is. So yeah absolutely. You got to have a chiropractor in your life. Biased opinion.
Yeah, that's all right.
So what about, nutrition. So what do we do?
We do mostly animal-based.
Yeah.
And we will drink raw milk, and we just make sure that the meat that we eat is clean. That's why we have the homestead, and that's why we are working on providing that for our family, but just making sure that the meat that you eat is grass-fed, which really helps with the omega ratios. It's not even, whenever we first started this, I believed that it was like, I don't eat gluten, and I'm very sensitive to gluten, and so I was always like, well, I can't have grain in my animals that I'm eating because you are what you eat. But the grain actually does not come through in animal meat, but the omega ratio is often in a very unhealthy way.
Pro-inflammatory way.
Very inflammatory. And then also when they're eating corn and all of that, that's going to be inflammatory. Where it does matter, just in case you have gluten intolerance, is a dairy cow. Making sure if you have a gluten intolerance that your dairy cow is grass-fed and not fed grain whenever they're milking, things like that. Super important because gluten does come through the milk.
Yeah. So a lot of times it's pretty crazy when people think, we've always heard, eat your vegetables and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we've started to actually get away from that. I'm not saying we've got it all figured out, but we found
There's a
there
lot
to
that we
be
don't
a
eat.
lot of science that supports there's actually a very pro-inflammatory and a pro immune response that happens. And so for you, just this kind of where we came to be, that was like, hey, it's the best thing for your body's function is to eat the least inflammatory foods on the planet. And then what I love about it is somebody brought this up to me in the practice the other day. This is like, she was like, I got to think about it in the Bible. And the Bible says, go to this land which I have promised you, a land flowing with milk and honey. Like, how cool is that? Like, I saw this thing the other day and there's this guy and he was saying, don't eat milk, don't drink milk, right? Like, milk is the worst thing you could ever drink for your body and no other animal on the planet eats it and stuff like that. And I was just like, well, yeah, no other animal eats it. Nobody's at the top of the food chain. They're too dumb to know the benefits of it. And the fact that it's literally in its raw form, perfectly fats, protein, carb, right? It's got every amino acid that you would ever need. It's got all the essential fatty acids in it. It's so good for you in its raw form, plus the probiotics. It's healing to your gut if you tolerate it. There are some people that have some health things going on that are not going to tolerate regular conventional dairy or raw dairy, but I would argue to say that that's a yet situation. It's like we need to work up to it.
Well, you got to start healing the gut too.
Right.
And that's because if you're anything like us, the life that we have lived has been hard on our gut, and you have to repair that gut lining and then therefore your tolerance to things. Like I hope I can eat gluten again.
But like, Mom, did you eat organic when you were little?
Right.
That's Brinley and Avery's question to us all the time whenever we tell them, hey, we've got to eat this better serves our body or whatever. They try to call us out for it. It's like, hey, whoa, we didn't know this when we were your age. You get the benefit of having it. So decent parlay there to number 3. So again, we can talk a lot more about nutrition, but whole foods, right? Cut the processed stuff. Sugar's the worst thing you could eat for your body. I don't care what anybody tells you. It does not serve you. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. I just talked a second ago about essential fatty acids, essential amino acids. There's a lot of those, 3 fatty acids, I think 12 or 13 amino acids that we have to exist in our diet. But we can create glucose out of all of those. We don't actually have to consume it. This is why the keto, I'm not an advocate for the keto diet, but that's why it's a thing. But finding quality carbohydrates, quality fruits, honey, milk, things like that, as a carbohydrate source is kind of the perfect thing for our bodies. So.
And I will say that if you're looking for a place to start, like maybe you're like, I'm all over the place. I know I shouldn't be eating and buying these things from the grocery store, but I just don't even know where to start. I always suggest Whole30. I think that there's so much information out there and so many guides and dinner ideas. And it's just a really good, clean place to start before you're like, okay, so animal-based, I can't eat these vegetables and do these things. So then you just kind of get overwhelmed and you're like, I don't even know what we're going to have. What are we just going to have a burger patty for dinner? And, so I think Whole30, I always recommend starting there. Just get in the groove, get used to not buying the packaged things at the store.
Perimeter of the grocery store. They always talk about that.
Yeah,
There's the only things that's worth buying at the grocery store are on the perimeter. You start going up and down the aisles, that's where all the processed stuff is.
Yeah.
And so I think even just that, cutting out processed foods, cutting out sugar, focusing on eating whole food, the shorter the ingredient list, the better it is.
Just flip it around and look at it.
I'm not anti this or anti that when it comes diet or anything like that. I know certain things work for certain people, but what I am anti is long ingredient lists. If it's got more than just 1 or 2 things in it, it's probably not meant for you. So on that note, number 3, detoxification. We talk about it all the time. Nutrition, finding a nutrition plan that works for you. It's very, very important. There's going to be things that are unique to yourself and different for somebody else. But if you're not getting the bad stuff out, detoxing your body, I don't care how much good you put in, there's no room for it.
Right.
We have a natural, like it's not trendy, right? Like people say, oh, I got my detox smoothie.
Right. And I think it's like kind of been put into that. And so maybe it's not taken as seriously as it should be or
like
or
eye
just
roll,
how important.
like,
Like,
she's detoxing.
Yes, right. And it's like, yes, it probably has good things in it, but making sure your drainage pathways are open, your lymphatic system is moving, all of that is super important to do every day, but then also like parasite cleanses with full moons and different things like that.
Well, and to skip down, there's a mentor of mine, he always said, man, if you could help people sleep better and poop better, you'll help them with anything because we have a natural rhythm of detoxing. Like, again, I know it's trendy. It's like tongue-in-cheek, eye roll, like, oh, so-and-so's doing a detox. It's like, yes, those actually help because they might enhance the detoxification process of our body. But if you are listening to this right now, your body is detoxing from the environmental chemicals and stressors and things that we put in and on our bodies right now.
Yeah.
God gave us a liver. He gave us kidneys. He gave us a bowel system that actually gets yucky, gunky stuff out of us. It kind of funnels down from that as broad to specific, to where even in our sweat glands, we're getting toxins out of our body, right?
Yeah.
But how many people do we talk to that just don't even sweat?
Right.
Again, going back to the hormesis thing, like, do we expose ourselves to high temperatures?
Right.
Do we move our bodies a lot to enhance that sweating?
No, we got to be comfortable.
Yeah, just stay
all
70 and
comfort.
fluorescent, y'all. 70 and fluorescent. So detoxification is huge, and there's a ton of supplements, there's a ton of resources, but it really comes down to doing what your body needs in that moment in time. And so there's specialists, there's people that focus in on this as to what your body needs. There's heavy metals, there's parasites, there's environmental toxins, there's stress toxics, stuff that's just from an emotional stressor that's toxic to your body. So all these different things, we have to be getting bad stuff out. And we got to make sure that even just that, if you're pooping every day and you're sweating on a regular basis, I think you'd be really a lot better off on the detox. You'd be on the right road as of addressing this as a pillar. So moving on, hydration. I always say hydration, if you're not drinking filtered water, your body's the filter. And then we got to go back to detox, right? Because now your body's taking in all these toxic things in our water supply. There's a website, gosh, it would be perfect. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes. You can go and look up like the quality of the water in your zip code and things like that.
That is
So
a thing.
we've got to be drinking clean quality water.
Even well water, which is a common misconception, and even one that I was like, well, if it's well water, it is definitely going to probably be better than the tap water. However, if you think about it, your well water is an accumulation of all the water runoff from everything around you. So if you live, quarter mile from a dump, or if your neighbor fertilizes heavily for his animals and his
herbicides and pesticides,
then all of that is just going to drain in and be in the water table and therefore in your well. Yeah. So it's good to get them tested just so you know what you have that you're going up against, but also just to get filtered water. Again,
that can be a simple one, but it can also feel very overwhelming. Oh golly, do I got to go get this, thousands of dollars whole water filtration system, all this stuff? Just starting with drinking filtered water is a great place to start.
Yeah.
They make reverse osmosis, gravity filtered water things. That's, a couple $100. You set it on your counter and fill it full of water, and the dirty stuff goes on the top. It's got these amazing filters, and clean stuff comes out in the bottom, and it's 99.9% pure water. H2O. That's it.
Then remineralize.
And then you can remineralize it. Yeah. So there's plenty of studies out there that suggest that best practices with that is to put some quality minerals back into your water. Again, a supplement that you can do, but it's worth it. It's going to taste better, and your body's going to absorb it that much
We'll also
better.
put that link in the show notes too.
Absolutely.
Of minerals that we recommend, because I know whenever I first started, I wasn't. So I was just drinking DI water, and I was like, I don't even know what a mineral is. What, do you want me to sprinkle some salt in there? And so that may be really helpful too for quality minerals.
Cool. Next, rest.
Yeah.
How you feel about that one, Abby?
I do feel like I'm better.
Yeah.
I get a lot more, like once your kids get a little bit older, my baby, he'll be 4, but he still crawls in my bed, and I'm okay with that, but
he's a good sleeper though.
Yeah, he's a good sleeper.
Wants to cuddle.
All of our kids really are.
Yeah.
Once they're not breastfed, wanting,
sleep
like
then.
they didn't require my calories from me, but really, it gets better. But it's still, as a parent, you're just up, and I feel like your mind just goes, thinking about them a lot. But
well, and that probably will never go away. Like I said, when the kids get older, maybe our rest gets better. Maybe it doesn't, because we stress about other things. But what we can do is better prepare for our rest, right? So I talked magnesium. We can give our bodies good supplements that help with that. The biggest thing I know so many people struggle with because of the world and the connectedness that we have is that we can't have blue lights going into our eyes telling our body that it's daylight.
Yeah.
Right? Confusing our brain. So the way the circadian rhythm works is when the sun comes up, melatonin levels go down, right? And so now our melatonin is at this real low level because the sun is rising, and we're allowing, so sunglasses don't allow melatonin to properly do its rhythm. So be mindful of that. I'm not saying never wear them. Just make sure you get some sunlight.
He was on me yesterday about this.
That's what the tap was about.
I was like, is that right?
if nothing else, a sunrise into your eyeballs before you put your sunglasses on them, because it tells your circadian rhythm that, okay, this is what's going on. Sun's coming up. We got to drop melatonin levels down. And then as the sun goes through its rhythm and starts to go down, melatonin levels start to climb. And if we put blue light into your eyeballs without sunglasses on, right at that time before we're supposed to be going to bed and the sun is supposed to be going down, guess what? Your melatonin is going to be all thrown off and your brain is not going to know what time it is. And so how many times do we talk with parents and they're like, oh, my kids don't sleep. I'm like, tell me about their nighttime routine. Well, TV and then bedtime, oh, we'll just let them watch one show. And again, I'm not here to tell you that you're evil, because if you do that, I'm just saying let's be mindful of it.
There are other options though.
If that's
What's
there.
that little thing called? Little Tykes? Little Tykes?
Oh, yeah.
And it's a
projector,
but it looks like it's like from the 90s, so I think that's why I really liked
cool,
it.
Yeah.
And you just put in the little book and it projects on, and so I don't think it's blue light, but it's just a story that then it's like as if a book were on there and they were flipping the pages and they were reading the story with it. And so it tells the story, like they have the little Berenstain Bears, and we have like a couple other ones about a dog and a boy and all kinds of different stuff. Maybe a good option if they're used to something to wind down, that could be.
For sure. But then also, if those aren't gettable because that was hard to find, read a book, to the kiddos. Or again, like if you go into the science of this, I joked about the HVAC system being a detriment to human health. I don't know if it really was. I promise I was kidding. Light bulbs start to question the circadian rhythm. And I promise we have light bulbs. I'm just saying we've got to do things. They make red light bulbs. So you can actually put a light bulb in. Softer light. So it's warmer. It's a warmer light. It doesn't have the same UV capacities that's going to trigger the melatonin release or alter the melatonin utilization of your brain. So super something to be mindful of. Also melatonin, while I'm on that, melatonin is a hormone. Yeah. So just if you're not sleeping super well, this would be a recommendation is maybe don't just start taking melatonin. Get your melatonin levels checked. Follow them throughout a 24-hour period and see what's going on with them. Let's not just take melatonin as a supplement or just give melatonin as a supplement to our children when they might not need it.
Yeah, just don't start there. And all of these things, it's not like you have to follow every single thing to a T. However, it will help your body just be more, everything will come easier if you start making some of these changes, like with the lights and with the screen time and with the different things like that, and just naturally help your body be able to get into a better rhythm and adaptability and rest and all of the things. So
none of us are perfect at all 7. I can promise you that. I'm not.
No.
Rest is probably my least best, not because I don't sleep like a brick whenever I do sleep. It's just
he's a child.
I don't like to go to bed.
Sleep. He's going to want the day to be over.
I enjoy my days. I don't want them to be over, for sure. But next, so mindfulness. There's a definition out there. Actually, let me pull it up, of mindfulness. I thought it was interesting. Mindfulness is a type of meditation in which you focus on being intensely aware of what you're sensing and feeling in the moment without interpretation or judgment. So I thought that was really good. But I would say the only piece that's missing is knowing what that's talking about is knowing who you are. Mm-hmm. Giving intention to, this is what my body's feeling right now. I need more rest. I'm tired. I should go to bed. I'm hungry. I should eat this and eat quality foods. And, listening to and actually practicing this, not just in a moment of meditation, but throughout your day, is being aware of what your body needs and giving it that. I always say, do we eat because we're hungry? Or do we eat for fuel, and things like that. And so paying attention is like, what's my body feeling? My nasal cavities are kind of feeling really dry. Mm-hmm. Oh, you might need to hydrate more, different things like that. And so being mindful of what's going on, but then the most important one, the part that the definition missed for me of why I coined this mindfulness as one of the 7 pillars, is knowing who we are, yes, but also whose we are. Mm-hmm. Because if we start there as the foundation of our identity, of our mindfulness, if I know that I am Christ and Christ died for me and that is the premise of the foundation that I operate every day of my life from, how much more freeing is it to live life? Like I don't have this major expectation of what I'm supposed to be able to achieve in a day, because Christ loved me so much that he would die for me on the cross, take my place, take the sinful nature that I have and replace it with his perfect nature, so that when God looks at me, he sees perfection. Like, it's such a relief of consciousness to live in that state of mindfulness. So when I talk about mindfulness, that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you may have to like knock it all down to rebuild that foundation. Like there may be a lot of 30 years worth of undoing that you have to do to get to there, to create that foundation and build up from there.
Absolutely.
That's where journaling comes in.
Journaling, Abby's favorite mindfulness practice,
my favorite thing.
is get it out of there. I just let it rattle around until it stresses me out and I lose my cool.
And I have to sit down and I'm like, what is wrong?
But mindfulness, guys, there's a lot to unpack there, but it is certainly a pillar to your vitality. So lastly, movement. All right. How do you think you do with movement?
You know, if farm chores and lifting kids and wiping butts is movement, I do it really good. If carrying chicken feed and pig feed and walking over to the animals, I'm great.
That is good. And there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
I think there is. I would love for you and others, I said this, movement daily with intention. And I said, I think for moms, especially stay-at-home moms, this is one of the hardest ones because you're always at somebody else's beck and call. You don't get that hour, perfect world, okay? Perfect world, nobody come at me. But perfect world, I'd love for an hour a day.
Yeah.
Movement, move your body, go out for a walk, enjoy the fresh air. Just do something with intention of, I'm not doing anything else, I'm moving my body today in this moment. Again, not an easy one to accomplish in certain areas of life. There's moments and times in my life where I put it on the back burner, but I know I'm my best version of myself whenever I am moving my body and I'm doing that kind of stuff with that type of intentionality. So we got to move. I don't care if it's lifting weights, if it's just stretching, going for a walk, a 30 or 45 minute walk. Like I saw this hilarious Instagram reel that says, I'm not saying a walk could cure everything. I'm just saying there's nothing a walk can't help. You know, like going out and just being in the freshness of God's creation and breathing that air, looking around and saying, wow, look at all this beauty around me. It just puts you in a totally different state of being and builds an amazing foundation for your vitality. That was hard to say.
It is, but it's good. And I think it's a great place to start.
Absolutely. And remember, guys, this is 30,000 foot view. So maybe we'll unpack each one of these in a different podcast. Let us know which ones you struggle with the most. And tell me if you think there's an 8th pillar of vitality. See you guys next time.
From the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you know and leave a review. By doing so, we're able to grow this community of amazing people just like you and raise a generation of children that know God and do His will on earth. We'll see you next time.